Our next guest is here, is the person who we're told to say a big congratulations to. So we are starting with that, just saying a big congratulations to the governor of Kakamega County for what apparently they are doing in Kakamega with public participation. Tunaanza kwa makofi. All right. FCPA Fernandez BARASA is the governor of Kakamega County. Good morning, sir.
Morning to you.
Welcome to the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Yes,
the ladies who are here are from an organization called GROOTS Kenya. GROOTS is grassroots organizations operating together in sisterhood. They organize public participation at the very grassroots level, where they bring the voices of the people to the government, and they participate in CIDP, they participate in the annual development plans, they participate in the budget making process, giving feedback in public participation, and they say they've had a very good time with the county government of Kakamega.
You're well.
Hi. Hiyo, karibu.
Asante.
This gentleman that you see here wearing this hat, this is a Papua New Guinea elder. He's honorary Papua New Guinea elder, but he's Kenyan. His name is Siti Muga, and he always has the day's proverb.
Don't believe everything this gentleman tells you. Our proverbs for the whole of this week, this is the last proverb for the week, have been from the country of Chad. Where two rivers meet, the waters are never calm.
Where two rivers meet,
the waters are
never calm.
Yes.
We had a conversation with you last week, or is it last week but one? Talking about the rainforest that is Kakamega Forest.
Yes.
So, of course, there are many rivers in Kakamega.
Yeah.
Where two rivers meet, the waters are never calm. I'm not going to ask you whether you relate with that proverb. Obviously, coming from Kakamega, you definitely do. But what's your interpretation of this proverb?
My interpretation of this proverb is where we have people having different ideas. Definitely, there's never a concurrence because of maybe competing initiatives. That is how I can interpret that proverb. Yeah.
Many ideas, competing ideas, there'll always be some knocking of heads.
That is it, competing initiatives.
Okay.
Yeah.
City?
You know, if the interpretation of the proverbs were an exam, you would have gotten 100%. And the reason is, we ask for your interpretation. It's how the proverb resonates with you. And that's exactly what you've said. Yes. As they say, iron sharpens iron.
Really?
Yes.
That's very true. Governor, you Nairobi to do many things. One of them is later today we expect to hear the state of devolution speech from the chair of the council. You chair a crucial committee of the Council of Governors, Committee on Finance, Planning and Economic Affairs. So we want to have a conversation with you about the state of devolution in the country. But let's begin with Kakamega. You recently had your budget approved by the County Assembly, 17.68 billion shillings.
Yep.
You were the first county to get its budget approved. 17.8 billion shillings is a lot of money.
Yeah.
How much of it is coming from the revenue share at national level?
What is coming from the Equitable Share?
Yes, Equitable Share.
It's around 13 billion Kenya shillings, based on the new release that was given, that is 385 billion. We also having amounts coming from the on-source revenue. That is around 2.2 billion Kenya shillings. Then, of course, we also have conditional grants, largely financing agriculture and some part of healthcare. Yeah, which will be the difference. Yeah, so when you look at that distribution, basically we have three main sources of funds. Going forward, I was trying to just encourage now counties to have what we call the Credit Worthiness Initiative, which is being spearheaded by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. This will open up counties maybe for scrutiny based on some specific criteria. Then it will now bring out their rating in terms of creditworthiness to facilitate external borrowing. Because in the Constitution, we also have that source of funding that should be coming from external borrowing. But first things first, counties should go through a rating. Yeah.
In order to be able to attract this.
Absolutely.
Please just explain to us, what are conditional grants? We can understand shareable revenue, we can understand own source revenue and how you collect, you generate it. What are conditional grants?
Conditional grants, these are monies which are given to counties with specific obligations. And one of them, I can just say, is, let's say, medical equipment. When the money is given to counties, it is going to fund a specific program without any diversion. And largely, this money is released either directly by the National Treasury to fund a specific program or by external partners. That's why the money is a conditional grant. It can never be diverted to fund any other expenditure. Yeah.
Okay. The own source revenue has been an issue, Governor. And if just looking at these numbers, I mean, own source revenue, as you said, 2.2 billion. Is there a case to be made for counties, even looking at Kakamega, to increase the amount of money that comes from own source revenue? We see that this revenue is largely from the collection of license fees and things like that, is it not? Is there space for more things to happen within the county that would then bring about revenue, much like what we see in different parts of the world in the federal system, whereby, states then create their own revenue in addition to what they get from the federal government? Now here, beyond the collection of licenses, is there room for some kind of creativity to step in and to say, let's increase this money that comes and not be so heavily then dependent on what comes from national government in the equitable share, for example?
Now, when you look at the revenue regime in Kenya, especially the taxes, what the Public Finance Management Act has given to the counties is only two sources. That is entertainment and property taxes. So that's now the source. What we are doing now as counties is to make sure that we exploit to the maximum the potential that exists. For example, in Kakamega, there is what we call the rating bill, which has never been there. We've not been collecting levies on rates, right? Because there is no rating bill. So I've tasked my Department of Urban Development and Lands to make sure that that rating bill is fast-tracked. We also have creation of municipalities. When you have municipalities in the county, then it will become a very big source of revenue because there will be a lot of economic activities. So far, before end of the year, I will be having Malava is one of my biggest sub-counties, being upgraded to be a municipality. Butere will also be upgraded to be a municipality. And later, Matunda in Likuyani will also be a municipality. So once we have those municipalities on board, definitely the infrastructure will be different because World Bank has a program of supporting municipalities through specific conditional grants. And of course, once the infrastructure has been improved, then revenues will shoot. The other issue we are doing is to make sure that we seal most of the loopholes on revenue collections through automation now. I brought on board a very robust cashless system that is facilitating collection of revenues. And we have a study by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, which has given counties a potential of collecting almost 200 billion Kenya shillings per year.
Collectively?
Collectively.
Yes.
Yeah. When you look at the performance for last year, we are talking about only 35 billion Kenya shillings collectively. So what that means is there's a lot of potential. which has not been exploited. For example, in Kakamega, we have mining of gold. Gold mining is a big thing. Right now, national government has provided now the Mining Act. We are doing a lot of exploration so that we move from artisanal mining to commercial mining. This will give us an opportunity of earning 20% of the revenues from gold, because the revenue sharing formula is 70, 20, 10. 10 goes to the community as CSR, 20 to the county, and 70 to the national government. So when you exploit all those potentials, you can clearly see that our potential is unlimited. Yeah.
Your Excellency, explain something to me. When you create municipalities, what is it in the creation of municipalities will then enable the entity we refer to as a county to realize more revenue? Because the people who live there won't move. They'll be the same people. The people who work there will probably be the same people. What are these salient points within a municipality that bring these things about?
Very well. Now, what happens is when you create municipalities, the infrastructure will be improved. We'll have a better road network. The World Bank has a specific program of ensuring that they uplift the municipalities. Municipalities will attract commercial institutions. Of course, when you have more investments in the county, also the levies will increase. Municipalities will definitely attract employment opportunities, because we'll have banks setting up there because of the better infrastructure. We'll have modern markets being built there. So when you automate activities around an urban area, definitely the collections will improve.
So are you saying that municipalities then become something like semi-autonomous entities within the county, but with specific advantages of having administrative and financial structures that enable it to do these things, and which are nestled perhaps in our constitution, because then they're able to do what now they can't do?
Yeah, in fact, what municipalities will do, of course, one of the issues is increased urbanization. And in an urbanized setup, very good infrastructure, social amenities are available, more investments will come in that area, then definitely you'll have more revenues being collected.
The reason why I'm asking this thing and belaboring the point, because I'm thinking the county system came in, municipalities existed, then they seem to have been done away with. And the only place where one found municipalities was in, say, the big cities. Okay? Talking Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nairobi. Okay? So now you're talking about something which existed before. Now, the old municipalities, one understood what they did. And there was even a ministry that dealt with them, Ministry of Local Local Government, Local Authorities. So is that to say then that perhaps within the national government there may be need for such a ministry to be able to handle and to assist with these creations?
Well, I think this is a county initiative, because in the past we used to have town councils,
Yes.
townships, for example. But in the new constitutional dispensation, the World Bank has a program on accelerating urbanization in the counties. And that is done through creation of municipalities. There's actually a criteria. You can't just wake up one morning and say this area is now.
This is now municipality.
We have a criteria, population, social amenities, land available, etc., etc. So once you go through, and then of course there is a committee that you appoint to go through all those issues and tick the boxes. Then World Bank, because they're very particular about that program, they'll come and do a survey through a mission to assess the preparedness of the county in that specific ecosystem, whether now the municipality can be created. And once they've given a nod and they have ticked all the boxes, then as a governor, you now legislate by having it gazetted officially. Yeah.
There's actually an act of parliament. This is the Urban Areas and Cities Act that governs this whole process.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at some of those things. So, for example, qualification for conferment of a municipality. For one area to be classified as a municipality, it needs to have a population of at least between 70,000 and 249,000 people, residents.
Very well.
It must have an integrated urban area or city development plan. It must have a demonstrable capacity to generate sufficient revenue, capacity to effectively and efficiently deliver essential services to residents, institutionalized active participation by residents, sufficient space for expansion, infrastructure facilities, including but not limited to street lighting, markets and fire stations, capacity for functional and effective waste disposal.
Very well.
Now, those things, just those ones,
Yeah.
Governor. And you're saying Malava, Butere, Matunda will progressively become municipalities.
Yeah.
You need to have done a lot to do that. For example, waste management is a big issue. Having an integrated plan that sees how this municipality is organized, having space for expansion,
Yes.
that's a lot.
Yeah, in fact, and that's what I was telling you, it's actually a process. In terms of population, that's already a criteria that has been
That one has been met. We can tick the box.
met, yeah, because we are very productive people there. Number two, sewerage, we are also investing a lot. We have put specific allocation through the Ministry of Environment and also survey and urban development, which is like counterpart funding to attract any other funding from the DFIs. In terms of course, the space, very crucial for expansion, because you cannot have a municipality where there is no a space for expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should become a city
Absolutely.
in future.
Then, in terms of the fiscal planning, we are now in the process of making sure that the spatial plans have been approved for purposes of now making sure that any future developments are based on a spatial plan that has been approved. So my one of my departments in the Ministry of Housing and Fiscal Planning, they're now fast-tracking that. There's public participation that has been going on so that we bring everybody on board. So it's exactly a criteria. That's what I was saying. By the end of this calendar year, we shall have at least met all the criteria. Then I sign off and gazette those three towns as municipalities.
Yeah.
We only have two municipalities at the moment, Kakamega and Mumias. And because of that, when you even go there, you'll see a big difference in terms of the infrastructure, because World Bank comes in very strongly, financial institutions come in to invest. Like Malava sub-county, you don't even have a bank there. And we have a population of over 250,000 people. So that's why the municipality thing is actually
It's a big thing.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're banking on it to be able to raise the 2.2 billion shillings
Yes.
own source revenue by June next year.
Yes.
We are closing the financial year today. How much have you raised in own source revenue this financial year?
This financial year, as at the month of April, we had actually done 1.5 billion Kenya shillings. And of course, that one having brought on board the cashless system in January. What the previous administration had in June 2022 was 1.1 billion Kenya shillings.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year. And that is why I have a very ambitious program now of doubling that in the next financial year.
What would
Because
happen?
of-
What would happen that would make that possible? I mean, there's ambition and then there's reality, isn't it, Governor?
Yeah,
That you can see, obviously, see things on the ground that would say, or is it just because we're able to do this with this amount of effort? What then would you say is resident in reality
Yeah.
that would then make that ambition possible?
The first thing is automating all the collections. And that one already done because we have a system that we've brought on board, a software to basically move away from manual collections of revenue because there's a lot of pilferage when you're doing manual. That's number one. Number two, we have also now done specific automation in the health sector. We have an integrated health management system. That's also one of our revenue centers. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we even commissioned what we call Facilities Improvement Fund. Again, the first county to do that, where all the collections in the Ministry of Health will be domiciled in that particular ministry. And for us to fast track and make sure that we collect whatever is collected, because there's a lot of potential, we have now automated that system. In the past, it was manual. So when there's manual, there's also a lot of lack of controls.
Yes.
The guys will come with a deposit slip and maybe the money is not in the bank.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Magic, yeah. So through automation, I'm very confident that those specific interventions, we are actually going to meet, if not surpassing the target. Yeah.
The voice of the people is also something that you mentioned last week when we had a brief chat. And it's a conversation we spoke about an hour ago, just here. And of course, your county came up. And in terms of the voice of the people is heard, giving adequate and ample space for the voice of the people to come about in these plans that you have. How important is it? They're the plans that the county executive has under your leadership.
Yeah.
But then there are people who put you in office, essentially, and their needs that they have. Where do their needs and voice then rank in priority for the things that you're planning and doing in the county?
Well, when you look at the voice of the people, it's actually a constitutional requirement. Largely, if you do a very good program without involving the public, somebody will even run to court. Because there was no public participation.
Yep.
And that is why our first priority is making sure that people are involved in all the programs that you want to do, right from the budget process. If we have any programs, like at the moment, we have a public participation around the plans. Yes, we had the CIDP.
Yeah.
That was approved. And by the way, also the first one.
To get an approved CIDP.
To get an approved CIDP and commission it. It went through public participation. Through CIDP, we have had the budget. After the budget has been approved, the next program now is specific development plans, which now we tell the community, yes, you told us you want 10 programs. In 5 years, which are the priorities for this financial year. Again, we'll have a program for public participation. And when you do that, it becomes very successful at the time of implementation. And people, of course, will believe that they been part and parcel of the process. You get a buy-in. You don't get resistance on the ground, and project implementation becomes very effective.
Governor, the issue of recurrent expenditure is a big one. Of course, even in your budget, even this 17.6 billion shillings budget, a lot of it is going towards paying of salaries. And it's become a big issue at national level and even at county level. How much of your budget is actually going to salaries in terms of even percentages? And what are you doing to keep it in check?
First and foremost, I want to confirm that yes, we have inherited huge numbers in terms of the staff. And the biggest challenge that we have in the counties is how to manage the wage bill. And for some of us who are the new kids on the block, you are between a rock and a hard place. Because you come in and you find the counties largely fully established. You cannot release those people because they were duly employed.
Yep.
Largely 70% residents of the county. So what you do now is to manage the wage bill. Of course, you have pressure from the guys who supported you. They want to be in government.
Yeah.
Out of the 17.6 billion Kenya shillings, our recurrent is actually around 6.1 billion Kenya shillings. Of course, slightly above 35% because we have a responsibility of maintaining our recurrent expenditure to the very bare minimum of 35%. What we are doing now as a county is to make sure that most of the programs are implemented by outsourcing. And one of the ways of dealing with that is, for example, security. You don't need to employ security officers as a county. When you outsource that, of course, you will manage a few areas of recurrent because most of the problems associated with staff traveling, etc., those ones will be outsourced. So you only deal now with the security firm. Cleaning is another area that you outsource to a specific cleaning companies. Again, we have actually progressively started doing that so that we operate within the fiscal framework that has been provided for in the PFM Act and also as the guidelines by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. In this budget, one thing that I'm very excited about is we've managed to make sure that we actually maintain the fiscal discipline, which requires that you allocate at least 30% of your budget on development, because that is what people will see. The impact will come from development. And in the budget that was approved, we have allocated 36% to development projects, which means at least besides just complying with the fiscal discipline, we also are progressively very committed to have impactful programs which will now improve the lives of people in Kakamega. I have a specific pillar on wealth creation. And for you to create wealth, you need at least to have programs, you need to have investment programs, which will now give people an opportunity to earn a living.
Obviously, county bosses are agents of devolution. By the fact that you are there at that position, it's saying that we are now then the ones who are going to propel devolution and to work at the county level. Do you feel, or from what you see, I mean, from what we all see, if we're looking at money coming from the national government, and this is Equitable Share money, right, that delays with the regularity that we've seen it in the last few months and years, does that stifle devolution? If it does, do you see this as a direct contravention to devolution as it should be?
Definitely the delays in disbursement of Equitable Share, that is largely the source of financing of county operations, is an area of concern. For the last cycle, which of course we are closing today, we were a bit understanding because we are moving in a transition. But I also want to appreciate the national government under the leadership of President William Ruto, because so far the counties have received all the monies which were supposed to be disbursed up to 30th of June. The last having coming actually on Monday. That is 29.6 billion Kenya shillings. So in total, we've received 399 billion Kenya shillings. That is including the last disbursement of the last financial year. We expect to have a predictable and timely disbursement of funds. That was one of the resolutions we had under the IBEC meeting that is chaired by the Deputy President. And the priority was counties should be receiving the equitable share as per the provisions of the PFM Act. There's a specific provision under Section 17(2) of the PFM Act that states that every 15th of the month, counties will be receiving the equitable share. So we are optimistic that in this financial year, starting from tomorrow, once all the cash plans have been put in place, I will not witness delays as have been in the past.
There's a funny subject that always appears in the papers.
Yeah.
It's one of pending bills. Does Kakamega have pending bills? And if they do, how is the county, thinking, planning, managing to ensure that they clear all these bills, if indeed they do exist?
One thing that I'm very proud about is we have actually cleared all our pending bills that we inherited in the last financial year. When I came on board, we had 1.3 billion shillings in pending bills. As at 31st of May, we had only a balance of 134. And this has
134
million. Which has already been sorted by the disbursement that we received 2 weeks ago. So I'm very proud that we are closing the financial year without pending bills that we inherited.
Governor, you must tell us how you're able to do this, because it seems as though it is something that's very difficult to do across the country, because we've got a huge number. And until now, a committee has been put in place to check and see what. So how are you able to how are you able to do this? Maybe it seems like another magical thing. It will be the second time we've mentioned it this
only in Kakamega.
There may be other counties, but we probably haven't heard of them. We know Mombasa has made some very serious strides towards this, but we haven't heard much from other counties.
Everybody seems to be in limbo in terms of not being able to do this because of 1, 2, 3. So you must tell us.
Yeah, very well.
How?
Now, the first thing that I did was to set up a pending bills committee to do a verification exercise of the pending bills. And I gave them 1 month because I had a very specific agenda to deliver. And after that audit was done, good enough, the amounts which had been captured as pending bills were actually properly supported. And to this, I want to give credit to my predecessor, FCPA, Wycliffe Ambeso Paranya, at least for handing over to me a county that has a bit of financial sanity.
As opposed to the financial insanity.
Yeah, so that was the first good advantage. So after the audit from the month of October, I now tasked my finance people to make sure that in every disbursement that we receive, the first charge, of course, is staff emoluments, and then the next charge is sorting out the pending bills. So progressively, we've been releasing at least 200 million in terms of pending bills. And that's why the balance of 134 that was there as at end of May, we have actually sorted out. Now, the only amounts now going forward, which of course we'll be having, are now accruals, not really pending bills per se, because there's a difference between accruals and pending bills.
Yeah. How do you have a plan on how soon you'll be paying any invoice that's submitted to the county to the county of Kakamega? Like, do you want to be paying within 30 days, 90 days, 120 days?
Now, when you look at the credit period that we have, of course, is 45 days. It's also very good financial management to have what we call credit financing, so that you don't operate on cash on delivery. So 45 days is our credit period. So largely, most of the items which are supplied, I've tasked my team, procurement and the entire supply chain, to make sure that the inspection and acceptance committees are in place, very progressive. When an order has been given or a service has been provided, the inspection and acceptance committee must move in to do verification, because you must do verification first, so that you don't just pay air. Sometimes you can pay air. So that inspection.
Well, if you ordered air,
and you receive air,
you will pay air.
So that committee is very progressive, and for me, when you do that, we'll really not have this challenge of pending bills.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to bring in the issue of the relation between, now talking at your position at the Council of Governors, the relationship between the counties and the national government. So this administration is very keen on doing some things. One, the affordable housing projects, and taking that to the counties, where much of the land will be provided by counties. There is the county aggregated industrial parks, which are also a collaboration between the counties and the national government, with the counties again identifying land, providing land, and working, also allocating some budget towards this. Let's start with the housing. How is this being done? What's the process of identifying the area that is going to have the affordable housing project? And is that handed over to the national government? What's the relationship here?
Very well. Now, one thing that we really appreciate is even under Article 187 of the Constitution that allows the national government and the county governments to collaborate on matters development. And the fact that we are interdependent, it's on that framework that we can do more by working together. On the issue of housing, what counties are doing, number one, is to make sure that we identify suitable land. Like in Kakamega, we have a land bank. So anytime we have an investment proposal, we have various places we can show our partners. Specifically for housing, the Department of Urban Development came to Kakamega. Of course, they have to look at the available land, which they did assessment. And we have identified, we have 20 acres within Kakamega municipality. We also have 15 acres in Mumias municipality that the National Department of Urban Development is actually satisfied that can be housing sites. So that program is now done through that collaboration. So for us, because we appreciate the value add on this collaboration, by providing land is very good. Now progressively, when now the national government will start off the program of constructing houses, we expect employment opportunities to be created. We also expect county people to be suppliers of some of the materials required for that program. So I look at it as a win-win program. Now on aggregation centers, the same thing. We have a program that we are putting in money 250 million. And then the national government also puts in 250 million. So that we now progress on the aggregation centers. And this will start in the next financial year, starting from tomorrow. Already in my budget, we have put in 250 million. And the advantage with aggregation centers is we are going to pull a lot of investments together. Issues of agribusiness will be fast-tracked. But in Kakamega, I was even ahead of the national government, where we've already launched an organic fertilizer plant. And that was done last month. I even had a pleasure of inviting the ambassador for US, Madam Meg Whiteman. She was there to commission the construction of an organic fertilizer plant in our industrial park. So when you have all those programs in place, you're assured of creating employment opportunities. You're assured of course, improving the infrastructure in that area. And this becomes a win-win situation, which of course will now reduce pressure from wananchi looking for small monies from you.
What are the risks? Risk number one.
Yeah.
Risk number one is the project begins, the project stalls at some point, and it becomes a white elephant. People look at you, Governor Barasa, as the one in charge or responsible for the white elephant. Politically, not good for you.
Absolutely.
Then the second risk is the quality of the development that comes up. So let's say the 20 acres in Kakamega.
Yeah.
For you to have 20 acres of an urban housing coming up, you need to have a lot of facilities put in place. You need to expand the roads that lead there. You need to look at waste management, sewer systems. You need to look at availability and access to schools. ECD, that's your responsibility. You need to build ECDs there. You need to build markets there and bus stops.
Health facilities.
And health facilities. And if you're not prepared for that, then it becomes a flop, so to speak. How do you deal with that?
Well, and that's now why it requires a lot of commitment. If you don't implement properly, definitely it will be political suicide, especially for some of us who are first-timers. And if we do it properly, it will be a plus to you. And because our commitment is to serve our people and provide services close to them and transform their lives, that's why you put in everything that is required to make it a success story, because you know the consequences.
The other question I have to ask, Your Excellency, is with regards to housing, there's a demand factor. In a county system, if you see 70% of those who work in the system are locals, they have homes. They don't live very far away from Kakamega itself. So you're creating municipalities. These are urban areas. What sort of demand will they be for these houses that you're planning to put up? Or have you already factored in, or do you already know the demands that you have for these?
Now, when you look at Kakamega County, it's a very vast county. We are talking about 13 sub-counties. We are talking about 60 wards. So you can be a resident of Kakamega, but you don't operate from home because it's quite vast. For example, when you have somebody from Likuyani that is almost 100 kilometers away from the headquarters, really you cannot operate from home. You have to live within the municipality. So the demand for housing is huge. Number two, we also have programs within Kakamega where we attract external players. So we want to have the proper infrastructure. The 30% that we are allowed to employ from outside the county, they also require housing. Going forward, we have this level 6 hospital that I'm very committed to make sure that we complete the civil works And in collaboration with the national government, we have the equipping of the same.
Yeah.
Now, once that facility is completed, we shall employ over 3,000 people. That again is already demand for housing.
Yeah.
Right? Because largely they may not be locals, because you also need to have specialists coming from out. The organic fertilizer that I've talked about, we shall employ almost 1,000 people. Again, we may not necessarily employ locals. So in terms of demand, I can already see demand of over 10,000. So when you give me 10,000 housing units, the demand is already there. It's actually what you call reverse economics, where the supply has actually created demand. Yeah.
I saw the president has pledged, what, 1.2 billion shillings towards the level 6.
Yeah, actually, he pledged 200 million to facilitate completion. I'm putting in 300 million, which has already been factored in this budget. Then the equipping, he has pledged 1 billion shillings. Of course, we require 3 billion progressively, but we'll be doing it in phases. Yeah, so there's some good progress on that one.
When should we expect this hospital to start being operational?
Holding other factors constant because of sometimes exogenous factors. We expect it in the next financial year to be operational. That is 2024-25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Governor, thank you very much for joining us today.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for sharing the journey that you're walking in Kakamega County. FCPA Fernandez Barasa is the governor of Kakamega County. He's been our guest this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.